Yo, I'm Drunky.
I'm the Flood.
And welcome to the Fortnite Update, where we talk about all the news, patch notes, and esports related to Fortnite. This is episode 17. It's December 13th. Let's start the update. All right, Flood, we've had a beautiful new patch come to Fortnite, patch 7.1. The first patch since the new season, and with it we had a few changes. First off, let's talk about the quick change they made to the airplanes. Airplanes now, every time an airplane is broken, the passenger and the pilots all take 25 base damage, not shield damage. It's a direct health related effect. What do you think about the changes to the airplane? Yeah, exactly, like fall damage. You're right.
I think this is one of the first things that we were all calling for immediately, and then I saw Epic tweeted about it, and they were saying, yeah, we're going to do it. We just don't know how much damage is fair. 25 still seems a little light to me. Airplanes are still a little beefcakey to me. I think you pointed out we need more ammo in this goddamn game if we're going to keep dealing with this many planes. It's a move in the right direction, but I still have a problem with planes being battering rams. That's my biggest issue with them. You know what? I would even take away this base damage thing if it just meant that planes weren't battering rams. Planes should explode the moment they hit a strike. Like, I don't know. Something needs to change on that front. That's my biggest issue. This is an acknowledgement that the planes were overpowered and a bit of a problem. At least they're acknowledging it. That's what this feels like. This feels like a little gimme of acknowledgement, but it doesn't feel like the fix that we need yet.
It definitely isn't. And I'm someone who, I think on the last one, I talked about how much I love planes, because I love them as a concept. They add a lot of fun. But the only punishment for a plane being 25 damage, you're telling me you're going to damage somebody for a mini or a bandage? That's it? That's all they get for the amount of health it takes to destroy a plane? Like, this thing can tank 2 full clips of an AK or something like that. It's just ridiculous how much it has. And so it's not so much that you need a punishment for the plane, but there's not enough of a reward for the person who destroyed the plane, I feel like.
Well, and especially when to take down the plane, you're going through typically clips worth of ammo. You're standing still, announcing yourself to the world, typically getting domed because you get more punished for fighting against a plane than you do for being in a plane by far. So, and I mean, we saw this, and we're going to get into the Winter Royale later, but oh my gosh, did we ever see this? Like, there's just, and I agree, planes are fun. They add a really fun dynamic element to the game, but there needs to be a downside. It can't all be upside to the plane. And right now, it's all upside.
Absolutely. And like you said earlier, the way they interact with buildings right now, I don't know necessarily if exploding a plane on impact or something like that is the answer for me, but they definitely shouldn't behave like a quad crasher does. The reason the quad crasher was so special is because this is something that breaks builds. Yeah. I think that planes should interact with these buildings much like a shopping cart would or a golf cart would, where they just run into it. You're going to look very awkward getting stalled out, but having a plane just be able to dive bomb through builds, I think really affects the integrity of the building of this game, because the quad crasher, it's, you got to hit it with the front end of the quad crasher, and you don't have as much mobility as a plane. So adding this to the plane just completely takes away any kind of respect for building I have.
100%. And from a design element, even the quad crasher has like the big metal front. Like, that's what it's designed to do. This one has a propeller. How is that working? Like, what makes any gosh darn sense about that? Like, it's so nonsensical. And from just a game design perspective, from a aesthetic perspective, it's just nonsense. And they need to fix that part of it. Also, I don't love that it boops people, because you just die to fall damage all the gosh darn time. And again, there's very little to no punishment for that. Like, I'm on a mountain and there's a plane coming, I'm gonna die. Like, there's very little to do about it. Especially if you're engaged in a third party fight, like, and the third party plane just boops both of you off the edge of the map. You're like, okay, well, game, I guess. Like,
at this point, when you see a plane about to dive bomb you, basically have to either you're gonna die to fall damage or getting hit by it, or you have to 50-50 it and try to get on a wing. Like, you have to try and see if you can connect to a wing and to climb on it, and you get a shot off that.
I'm always just desperately hoping that there's like natural like outcroppings, like a natural cover, basically, because I can't build cover. Yeah, which I don't know. It's just very frustrating. I will say once again, especially with other changes we're going to talk about, the grappler right now in my mind is indispensable.
Yes, absolutely. Because we're talking about now the Nfinity Blade.
Woo!
The mythic melee weapon can be found at the polar peak. The primary fire is a sword slash. The secondary fire is a leap that does damage. The wielder of this sword has increased health pools up to 200 health and 200 shields with a regenerative effect of 1 HP per second. Additionally, the player can build and also has increased move speed of 130%. When a player picks up the Nfinity Blade, all of the inventory items, aside from building materials, will be dropped. What do you think about the Nfinity Blade, Flood?
Anyone's watching this has already heard all about it because it is indeed a mythic blade. It is of mythical stature at this point. I don't think anyone can stop talking about this goddamn blade. Thanos has come, and so I'm gonna start off. I'm gonna admit a couple things. Okay. I've had a blast a couple times with this blade. I killed a guy with the blade as my second kill one time, then went on to a 12 kill win in one of the pop-ups, and it was a blast. I was laughing the entire time. I've had a couple chases where someone was chasing me with a blade and I jumped on a quad crasher. Had a blast. I was laughing the entire time. So, like, it has brought me some joy. It has brought me some joy. Other than that, it is an unmitigated disaster. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. It's insane. It's absolutely ludicrous that this exists. That's part of the fun, though. Like, I'm laughing at how insane it is every time I get it or every time I'm dealing with it. And again, this is where the grappler comes in. If I've got a grappler, a P90, and a hunting rifle, I will fight the guy with the blade. If I don't have those things, if I don't have at least those three things, I'm out. I'm hiding. I've also had hilarious games where, like, I've ninja'd around, like hiding around a tree, like just like trying to dodge him, and it's like, he doesn't see me, because you can't fight it otherwise. Like, you need certain balloons will work too, but it's dicey.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so insanely powerful. Like, it's just so powerful. It's so obnoxious. And in Thanos mode, you were highlighted as Thanos, and everyone collectively tried to kill Thanos. This is not that game, though. This is not an LTM. This is the real game. People will steal your kill. If you're fighting against the Thanos, the Nfinity Blade, they're going to dome you while you're fighting them. They're going to try to kill you while you're fighting them. Like, they're not going to worry about that's just not the way players work in a Battle Royale. I hate to say it. And again, if you want to talk about building, he just smashes through everything. Whoever's got the blade, like, there's just nothing you can do. It's so brutal. I can't believe that they did this. It's so insane. It's so powerful, and it's so absurd.
This is 100% the most concerning thing Epic has ever done to their game. Just putting this in without, I don't know how much thought process went into the ramifications of this long term for the game, because I know they say this is temporary. The fact that they added this into the direct game modes instead of having an LTM kind of speaks to where Epic wants this game to be and how it feels about what the community wants. Because the last thing we had that was similar to this was the Fortnite mirrors, where this is a completely game-changing thing that changes the core of the game, right? Yeah. And it's in these solos, duos, and squads modes instead of a separate LTM like the Fortnite mirrors. This is kind of something that's like forced upon us. It's thrusted. You're going to play like this or you're not going to be playing Fortnite.
And not to mention during your fun little Explorer pop-up cups, but during the Winter Royale.
There's so much to get into the Winter Royale.
It's just so insane to me. And you know what? The thing is, to expect anything else from them is also kind of insane. We had, what was it, the summer skirmish, where everyone was anti-gravity in the middle of the summer skirmish. We had Fortnightmares happen during the fall skirmish. Like, at this point, we should all just expect it. Like, skirmish players should just understand that is what Epic is going to do, and deal with the fact that, like, I don't want to say adapt. I know you hate that, but like, to not, like, we can't take it seriously at this point. Like, you just can't take it seriously from a competitive playing standpoint. If you think you're going to play one game, go into your next skirmish expecting to play a different game that you've never played before, because that's what's gonna happen.
All right, let's dig into the Winter Royale then. Let's start at the beginning, because this patch, or when this thing started, this was an open qualifier for the entire Fortnite community. This qualifier took place during season 6, where none of the snow map was here. There were no planes. There were no blades. Risky Reel still existed. And I bring that up because that's a major drop spot for a ton of people. Not having Risky rotate or affects rotations massively. So in this qualifier, you play in a completely different game. Move into season 7, which has been out for a little bit. And then the morning of, a massive, the qualifier for the finals, they drop a huge patch that completely changes the way in-game of this game works with the Infinity's Blade. I don't know, I don't think Epic cares about this at a high competitive level. They want competitive players showcasing what they think is going to be fun for the game, right? Like the Infinity Blades is a huge fun thing, and they want competitive players showcasing this for them. This is like a advertisement more so than it is a actual, tournament.
100%. And we've talked about this before. We've said it before. I'll say it again, is that they're almost more of a marketing company than they're a game company at this point. Yeah. I would maybe say publicity company, because that way at least you can say no publicity is bad publicity, because they're getting all kinds of publicity about this Blade. Like everyone is talking about Epic. So in that sense, maybe they're winning. They ride a really weird line between competitive and casual play. Casual play is their bread and butter, right? Like that is their bread and butter. But they throw on these massive tournaments that pro players cannot ignore, because they're worth a lot of money. They're really interesting. They're where the money is right now in this world of gaming. And also it is really fun. And this is the game that they're playing the rest of the time anyway. But they ride this weird line, as you say, where they're just they're using their pros to showcase fun features, as opposed to giving the pros like a real, fair, competitive, refined experience. Because like it is the same experience for everyone. It is fair in that sense, but it's not a refined, like really truly competitive, fair way to play the game. Like it's not. You don't go in. You should be able to expect the game that you're going to play going into it. You should be able to plan ahead. And these guys can't. You can't plan ahead. You can't, because you don't know what the hell Epic is going to do. I love you, Epic, but come on. What like? Why did you put the Blade in the Winter Royale? Like that one doesn't make any sense to me. If you're going to make us all deal with it in solos, fine. Cool, whatever. But in the Winter Royale, that seems like it's a publishing move. Like it's a publicity move, not a gaming move. And I think the backlash on this one, I think they're finally getting to a point where the backlash is getting so large. And I mean, we've backlashed on a lot of things as players in this game of Fortnite, because it changes so often, and there's been a ton of backlash over a lot of features. The Blade might be the breaking point. I don't know. For a lot of people, it's really sounding that way.
It felt really weird. And like no one knew how the Blade was going to handle in the tournament, right? And because you could tell, because the first two games, only 2 people went for the sword. And the person who got the sword at the very beginning was a pro player by the name of Nice. The first game, he got hot drop for it, where he had to compete with one other person. The second game, he was the only person on the Polar Peak to grab the sword. After that match, because in that side of that match, he went off with like 12 kills late game. After that, we had 5 to 6 professional Fortnite players hot dropping for this sword, pickaxe battling over who can pick it up first. That's how game changing this was. That discovery and how broken it was in game. These pro players who spend hours and hours practicing their builds, practicing their shooting, practicing their wall edits and tight late game situations, got the sword put into the game that someone can do a leaping maneuver and just destroy mountains of builds. And that was the move. And like, I don't blame one of these pro players who picked the sword up. This is a tournament worth tons of money.
I was just going to say that. Some people were giving a lot of hate on the guys who got the sword and got wins with that. And people were hating on them. And I think that is baloney. If it's in the game, use it to win. Be mad at the fact that it's in the game. Don't be mad at the player for using what's in the game. That's not fair to the player. The player needs to do what he's got to do. I would do the same thing. Anyone would. So that's not fair. But be mad. If you're going to be mad at something, be mad that it's in the game. It did lead to some really fun and crazy moments that were interesting to watch. The spectator in me has to admit that. But the gamer in me is crying. Like it's such a weird mix. Parts of it were very entertaining.
It was entertaining, but in a sports game like hockey or football, I don't like a high scoring game. I don't like a hockey game where someone scores 6 goals on both ends. It's a 6-6 hockey game. You're not watching a good hockey game. You're watching something that's good for highlight reels on ESPN later, but this is not a fun viewing experience for me as someone who like deep dives a game. I love watching late game Fortnite. And I thought with all the changes that they have made to stop the heal offs, this was in a very good spot. I was excited to get in there and watch some late game Fortnite and see what these, the pros really showcase what they can do mechanically and not just like work for a heal off where everyone just like, this is so boring. Because heal offs has stopped. Someone had told me, well, this is better than heal offs. People don't realize it because they don't watch these scrims for the other than the tournaments. Heal offs has stopped. There hasn't been heal offs in these custom epic games for about a month now. They really fine-tuned the competitive rule set to where that stopped, and then they put this blade in.
Yeah, it's funny because if you did a state of the game, other than a few glitches and weird things and the plane, like we were in a pretty good place. Like a lot of the gun meta and stuff is working in a way that I think is pretty good right now. A lot of things are starting to feel pretty good, but then they just keep throwing these massive curveballs instead. Like some of the minutia is getting so much better, but then they throw massive curveballs of a freaking sword. Like it's so wild because like we were so close to having a game where everyone could be like, this is working pretty good. This is pretty good, and then all of a sudden, no. Like
the first game where the sword really wasn't a factor because it got left in the storm about mid game because the player niece died. That was the best game I've watched in a long time. I was on the edge of my seat. I was hyped up for it. I was excited about it. This is game one of the first heat too, by the way, not the finals. And after that moment, once the sword was introduced, I have never been less interested in Fortnite watching competitively. I found myself for the first time watching these tournaments actually being bored, where I thought to myself, this really doesn't matter. This doesn't just have to do with the blade. It has to do with the planes we'll talk about here in a second. But mid game really felt boring. Not so much like, oh, they're sitting inside of here. But like I knew it didn't matter because no matter where they farmed, where they rotated, how they positioned, the guy with the sword was just going to come in late game and start wrecking everybody, man.
It takes away all the tension on all the buildup because the buildup is gone because none of it is important compared to who's got the sword.
Yeah.
That's the question is who's got the sword? Okay, what are they doing with the sword? Okay, well, they're about to kill everyone with the sword.
Yep.
That was the game. Like that's a boring game to watch. I'm so sorry, Epic, but it has entertaining moments, but it's not a good game. Like that's not what this game is. Like
like people having mid ground, high ground kind of like was people who had absolute high ground weren't really affected by the sword. But everyone who was playing low ground and some of the mid ground people just they couldn't do anything against this. Like, what do? You try to shoot the guy with the sword. He's either on top of you or other people are going to start shooting you. There's just no counter to this. People will say, oh, well, the balloons counter it. No one's picking up balloons in a competitive match. And like, just as a side note to loop back on the blade in general, if you're saying you have one item that counters this, so I have to pick up balloons so I can counter one specific player in a match of 100 people. That's not a healthy place for the game to be in. So this is when you bring it up to competitive, no one's going to be carrying balloons late game because that's just balloons have zero use in competitive late game Fortnite. What are you going to do? Float up to the high ground? Like you're just going to get beamed. Like no one's going to carry them.
Yeah. It's a pub item and I love balloons. I have a lot of fun with them, but like it's a pub item. I get that. Like I know where I stand here. Like,
all right, let's talk about.
I don't even know. We could harp on this forever. Like, sorry.
Let's talk about airplanes in the Winter Royale. What do you think about the airplanes and how they affect competitive?
My absolute favorite moment, and we got to just jump to the Chap thing because it was so funny. That clip of Chap watching the airplanes and watching the casters talk about the airplanes as the two of them chased each other around like, oh, we got a dogfight coming up, and the casters are all excited and Chap is just laughing because they were purposely missing each other. Why? Because when you're in the airplane, the only threat to you in competitive is another airplane. No one on this ground is going to stand there and shoot you, which we just talked about. And especially in competitive where you never expose yourself. Like these guys are very careful. They're building all the time. This is what scrimmers do. They build, they're never out of cover. Like it's so rare to be out of cover. And that's why sniper rifles become almost useless too, which is interesting. But they're almost never out of cover, so they're never going to be able to fight a plane. Like you're just not going to do it. And so the planes are invincible, essentially. Like you can just literally ride the plane around and just wait out the storm until the very end. And it's the safest way to play the game. If you get yourself a little loadout, jump in a plane, you're basically safe. They were actually they were basically memeing Fortnite and shooting around each other on purpose to be like, yeah, we're active, guys, haha. Like it was such a freaking joke to watch, but it was funny from a, hey, we're memeing the company that made this game and is throwing this tournament kind of way. But it made me just feel bad. Like,
it felt very slightly embarrassing as someone who follows competitive Fortnite pretty closely and with a lot of enjoyment to see this. And it's not so much the players. It's more so that the planes are kind of disrespectful to competitive Fortnite. these players were able to stay, untouched without spending any mats, without spending any health, just looping around to the final circles where they would finally just kind of kamikaze their plane down onto the high ground or whatever spot they could find, and then have a huge, massive advantage in terms of mats, materials, and health. Mats and materials. I'm so good at talking. Over the players who are on the ground and had to rotate with materials for cover.
Yep.
And like, why would they ever want to shoot themselves in the air? You're lowering the health of your plane, and if you do kill someone up there, then you got another person on the ground that's going to start shooting at you. At certain times, like I think we saw, 10 to 11 players just doing circles like birds in the air.
Yeah. Well, because there's no reason not to, right? Mm-hmm. Like the circle's just going to get smaller. My competition is going to continue to get thinned. And if I want to dive bomb someone and murder them, I can.
Yeah.
Like with very few consequences. If I see someone who happens to be able to get booped, I will. Like, again, there's just no consequences, and it does not fit into the game that they've built. They've built a game with a rule set, essentially a rule set and sort of a meta to it. And it completely breaks that meta.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to care. Like... Or be interested in testing things before they throw them into massive competitions, which again, it's a publicity move. Like it's great marketing. It's super interesting. Everyone's talking about it. We're talking about it endlessly.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's frustrating to watch as a human being.
When you finally saw people mid game, like doing build fights and fighting each other, all of a sudden there would be a plane swooping in, destroying their builds, hitting them with their plane. And then after that plane finished, another person would come and bust the tower. The planes were working together almost at the people on the ground because they knew it was free shots. Planes have got to change. They have to change for the base game and for competitive, or it's gonna become useless. These things, they should at the very least have a fuel gauge on them.
I was going to say a fuel gauge, limited health, anything. There's so many different ways you can adjust this that will make it better. Limit the health, increase the damage, make it not bust through player-based build, or take extreme damage every time it does. Not be able to boop players in some way. I don't know what that is. Maybe it just stops when it hits play. I don't know what it is. There's 1,000 different ways you can do this, Epic, and I guarantee there's a table of people figuring that out right now because they're all. I guarantee they're hearing the backlash about this.
Like they're
we're a couple extra voices on like a million right now. So
yeah, as much as we think Epic is tone deaf, they're actually one of the better companies I think at like paying attention to social media and Reddit and stuff.
100%.
So they know this is going on. My change, I really want the planes to happen. Put a fuel gauge on there. And then let that fuel gauge be replenished by destroying other planes. So like you incentivize dogfights. Like that's where I am at. Like that will bring dogfights into it.
That's I don't think that will be a solution, but that's a hilarious solution. Like I kind of love that idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That would be super funny because then all it is if you're going to be in a plane, you're fighting other planes. That's what you're doing. Deal with it.
All right. So that has to do with the gameplay of it. Let's talk about more so the players and the kind of production around it. Right. First off, Nolan Lull came in first place. Congratulations, Nolan. Well deserved. Second place, 72 hours from Liquid. After that, Tyler 15 picks up third, Young Chung for fourth, and Legendine for fifth. Real quick, Liquid 72 hours, the only person that I know out of that list. I think that speaks volumes about this tournament.
Yep. Like, I don't even know what else to say. Yep. It was super interesting. I like that they had the open qualifier. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
The Winter Royale was different compared to any of the other ones. It felt less, I didn't even know when all the events were. I didn't even realize this was a grand finale that was happening. I was like, wait, what, are we still in qualifiers? What's even happening? So I felt it felt looser to me as a more casual observer. Mm-hmm. It was, I don't know. I watched the finale. I watched parts of the rest of the day throughout different broadcast streams, and I had a good time for the most part. The Nfinity Blade, but I was just mostly laughing at the memes. I'm glad Liquid 72 Hours did it. He's a beast. Came in where he did, good for him. The quote no names that got the rest of it. Again, amazing players. Like, congratulations to all of them. I don't know what else to say. I don't know.
No, I think it's crazy that this open qualifier brought this much to it. Also, I think someone I know and I follow, Liquid Poach. This is somebody who hasn't missed a top 10 in a tournament ever. And he didn't even make it into the finals. I think that has to talk about like the Infinity Blade and the planes and how much the meta shifted. And it was kind of luck of the draw. Like, did the plane guy attack you or not? But just the fact that we have so many unknown people coming up through this qualifier system, do you think this is better for Fortnite or worse? Is in the sense that like when you watch, tournaments, they are more exciting when you know the players involved.
Yeah.
So do you think this is a good thing for like Fortnite and the community, or do you think it's a little worse?
And see, that's the delicate balance I was talking about earlier, where like I think they ride this weird line between casual and professional.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice that we got at least one pro in there in that top 5. I think they need to shift the balance a little bit more towards pros. Just bring it back to pros and content creators just a little bit more.
Yeah.
This is
real quick. I think all these people are pros. It's more so like, are they signed? Are they well known outside of the like competitive scene where like all the players like know each other? Like for the casual observer, you don't know these people.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, like some of these guys, like I'm calling them quote no names. No offense to any of you, by the way. It's just a matter of like as a non. Like if I'm not paying a ton of attention to pro scrims and stuff, I don't see your players. I apologize. But so maybe, dude, it's such a weird balance because in that sense it is really good. But as you say, like they did that little hype video for the one kid, and I loved that. I thought that was really cool. It reminded me of like boxing videos and stuff. Like that's one of my favorite parts of like HBO boxing is when they do those cool hype videos to get you interested in some of the cares, some of the players. You need some of the more of those players to be getting into these top 10 areas you would hope and expect. But I do like that it brings in new players and it hopefully gives them a little bit of attention. But the more you do that and the more often you do that, eventually it dilutes the meaning for everyone.
Yeah.
So it dilutes the significance because then people are just like, another guy got in there, whatever. Who cares?
Sure.
Because it's random at this point with the RNG. So
it's definitely weird because like I want everyone to have an opportunity to come up through. Like if you're good enough at Fortnite, you should be able to play this. Like I love that aspect.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this was the least viewed tournament for Fortnite. Does that have to do with like what day it was scheduled on? Does that have to do with the amount of people who weren't in it, who are known like players and content creators? Like it's a weird one for me, man.
It didn't feel like it had the same format. Like in the previous summer and fall, I felt like I knew that on this day there was going to be an event for this that was going to move people forward. On this day, I knew that there was going to be an event for this, and it felt very structured somehow. And this one, I was just like, oh, randomly, it's this day. There's winter qualifiers, and then there's a match, and I don't know. Maybe that's just me that I wasn't paying enough attention, but it didn't feel like it was clear to me what was a qualifier, when was a thing, and when was a real event. It all felt very loose to me, and I was a little lost on it. So that's part of it. I do like the idea that more people are available to get in, which is why I loved the open qualifier. But after that, I think it needed to tighten up a little bit.
Yeah. And you're right about the structure of this. I would say this probably had to more do with like the patch coming out and then wanting to do the qualifiers and the finals after the new patch to highlight the sword and stuff like that. Because I had a lot of people while we were watching it saying like, oh, like, are there any more qualifiers going on today? I'm like, oh, these are the finals. Like this is like this is the event, man. This is what it's all about.
And I don't know why that was confusing to me. Like it was confusing to me, and I don't know why that was confusing. Like, what did they do wrong here? Like it wasn't announced in proper ways, or it wasn't. I don't know. It just wasn't a clear schedule, and that's frustrating to me as someone who's interested. Like I'm interested. I want to know who's qualifying. I want to know when to watch big events. But
I think it has to do with that. It was on a Wednesday, which kind of feels awkward. Or say Wednesday? Well, it wasn't. It was Wednesday. It was a Wednesday. Which is in the middle of the week, which doesn't really feel like a significant day to have a big tournament. Also, it started at 3:00 midday, which kind of midday. Kids are kind of working midday or at school midday. People are still working at 3:00. So that kind of felt weird. I think that adds to the overall confusion. I don't know, man. It didn't feel like the conclusion of a big tournament.
Well, it never felt like there was a preamble to the tournament. There was some qualifiers that happened a while ago, and I was really excited about those because everyone was involved in them. That was fun. And then all of a sudden, there was a finale that I didn't really realize was happening until it was happening.
Yeah.
Okay. What happened in the middle? Like, where was the middle? I don't know. I feel like there was no middle.
Let's talk about the production of the tournament a little bit. I think that at certain times, this was the best, well-produced Fortnite tournament we've seen. Yes. And other times, I'm still sitting there screaming there like, what is this camera angle? I can't even see where this player is shooting.
Yeah. Okay.
Are we getting better? Are we getting worse? Are we just like creating?
I'm going to say they're getting a lot better.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that in a battle royale, it is a extremely hard. I understand your production team and the guys who are pulling those cameras. I understand this is probably one of the hardest things to do in terms of a game, because there's so much going on and it's so hard to do. I just need whoever's in charge to not pull the camera when the fight is about to conclude. Stop doing that. That's the number one thing. And I don't understand it. Is it a timing issue that they're demand to change after 30 seconds of that player? Like, is that why they have to change? Please stop doing that. Let me finish the fight so I don't have to watch it as a recap later. Just let me finish the like that one drove me crazy. And the number of times I was watching someone run and looking at the face of the model. I don't care about the face of the model. Why am I seeing that?
Yeah, that was very awkward, because at times it felt like we had a gameplay angle and then all of a sudden the player would return and they're like, oh, I can't see where this player is shooting anymore.
I'm like, where is he? Where are they running? Because like it doesn't like I guess you're trying to make it more cinematic, and that's kind of cool here and there. When I'm watching someone rotate and you're just talking, if there's nothing better to watch, but I don't know when that is possible. When you've got 99 professional players jumping out of an airplane, there's always something to watch that would be more interesting. I want to see rotations. I want to see how people do things. I want to learn from this experience. I don't want to watch a character model's face running at me. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Because at times, like what you said, some of the cinematic angles they put on stuff were amazing.
Yes.
Like, there was one point where
the wide shots.
Dude, there's one, they went from the very ground level and it was like the circle 8 or 9 and pulled up from the entire fight from the bottom all the way to the top. You can see where everyone was. That was some like massively well done production. And then at other times, I literally can't see what a player is doing. There's somebody farming a floor, but in the kill feed, I just seen like 5 kills go off and someone's like farming a wall. I'm like, it's hard, but like as a spectator, as a viewer, it like guts you on the inside, man.
100%. Yeah. Like you were talking about that because you did a viewing party with this one. You watched it, which was great. And it's tons of fun, by the way. I was lurking that for quite a bit, but I love like your frustration at the kill feed itself. Yeah. Like you're watching whatever and you're watching the kill feed because you're someone who's going to pay attention to the kill feed. You're a player who's interested in those names. And as we all should be, we should be caring about those characters, those names. Those are the players in Fortnite. It's not the character model. And again, if you're going to be watching a specific player, why shift on the model in weird ways? Like, I don't know. The wide cinematic shots were amazing. I agree 100%. Like they're definitely getting better. I think they're figuring out the formula. It is one of the hardest things I can ever imagine producing. It would be very challenging to pull these cameras properly and shift between things properly. They're getting better. They still need work.
One thing I will never get off of: the spectator mode lag has got to get fixed. If you're watching somebody from their angle, they are not aiming where their shots are going on the spectator mode. And as a viewer, I can't tell who's good at aiming, who's bad at aiming, why they're missing these shots. Like that has got to change. That has got to get better. I'm sure there's people working on it, but like
maybe we're seeing what the servers are and like what the player is like. Why isn't my shot hitting? Well, we're seeing what it actually was on the server. I don't know. Maybe that's what's going on. It's very peculiar. I agree. It would make the whole experience cleaner because you really want to see that. You want to see technical skill and you want to see, is he moving the cursor exactly where he's meant to do? Like that. These guys are impressive human beings. Like I want to see how they're doing what they're doing. And I want to see everything they're doing. I want to see those rotations. I want to see all that fun stuff. I don't want to just see, I think it was Myth was complaining about how many times we just saw a ninja getting shot in the head on his Twitter. And like, that was an interesting commentary. I understand why we're going to get to see that, but at the same time, he's a little bit right in terms of I want to also see some of the interesting strategies that people are doing and why they're doing it, and some of the commentary. I want to hear the commentators tell me why a guy's rotating the way he's rotating. Like that's the stuff that's interesting to me as a player. Yeah. So,
well, and the rest of production I will say the two people on the desk, Golden Boy and Monster D Phase, I thought that was some of the best chemistry we've had. I could sit there and listen to those guys talk about it for hours.
They're fantastic. And they're both knowledgeable.
Yeah. Monster D-Face definitely goes very deep with his knowledge of this game. There's some shots taken over because some of the stuff they have to say and not acknowledge what's actually going on in the game. They kind of have to like put the big smile on no matter what, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's this is difficult. We were talking about this earlier because like sports broadcasters will sometimes call out baloney plays, you know what I mean? But they also have a long history and typically we're pro players themselves and there's years of it and they know what they can get away with and what they can't. We're in a position where this is the Epic run tournament. They're sitting at an Epic desk paid for by Epic, being paid by Epic. And the fact that they're not calling out that weird dogfight, for example, it's hard not to blame them, but it's also ridiculous to watch, and you feel kind of bad for them.
Yeah.
It's awkward. The whole situation is just awkward because we know that Epic made a mistake. They know that Epic made a mistake, and they don't know how to say that during the Epic's live event.
Yeah.
Like, that's a shitty position to be in. I understand that. But again, props to them. They did an insanely good job. I agree.
Those two guys, I don't know how much, I assume they haven't known each other for a while. The way they broadcasted and their chemistry, I felt like they had known each other for like 20 years and they were sitting at a bar watching Fortnite on TV. Like, it felt so good to watch as a viewer, man.
They clicked and they spoke well and they were articulate. They did a really good job. They were super fun, and I would definitely love to watch more of them.
Yeah. And those in-between packages of the players, and like we got to know a little bit of their backstory, like that was amazing. And I hope like that gets done more. The in-between game interviews on Skype calls or Discord calls was amazing to watch. Like,
loved that.
Like that type of production stuff going up is like exactly on point and what they need to be doing. Like those interviews were hilarious to get the direct insight. 72 Hours and his memeing was some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen.
Oh my God. And it emulates big sports, and I think that's what these guys need to do if they want to be big sports. Emulate big sports. Like when the player comes off the ice in hockey, they talk to them. Well, what can you do differently in the next quarter? Like, what are you going to do? I just called it a quarter, and like I'm a hockey fan. God damn it! In the next period. But you get my point. Like, you talk to the athletes between what can you do differently, what happened, and that stuff is entertaining and it's interesting, and it gives us personal insights into the characters that are who we care about as viewers. So paint these characters up, make these humans into the characters that we want them to be. Like, we want to watch heroes, like we want to watch people who are great at this thing. So give us more insight into that, because we'll eat it up. And give us a bigger structure for your Winter Royale, so that you can time that and build on these people so that we care about them even more, because we get to watch the progress of the tournament, as opposed to just being like, wait, the finale, what happened? Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think that's all for the Winter Royale. I can't think of much else to talk about it.
I feel like all we've done is complain this episode.
Yeah, I was thinking that same thing. I was like, what else can we talk about to be more positive? But it's kind of been one of those weeks in Fortnite where it just felt like a lot of stuff went the wrong way for us, man.
And it's so frustrating because it all comes back to the same baloney. It's airplanes and Nfinity Blades. Like, it's all that. Like, what are we talking about? The commentators? They did a great job, except that they had to be awkwardly sidestepping talking about that. What are we talking about with the professional esports? Well, they had to deal with that. What are we talking about with the casuals? Well, we had to deal with that. Like, everything comes down to this one decision by Epic that I think we all thought was weird.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, guys. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I will say for this week, I know this unlocked the Infinity Blade, allegedly. What they're doing with the Polar Point is, I think, one of the best in-game season changes so far.
Very cool.
The fact that it's melting away and like getting new stuff, like you can see there's going to be a lot more to it. Loved it, bro.
Love it. And that area is really cool. Like, I'm really loving that castle. Like, that is going to be a really cool spot. I can't wait for it to be the spot that I want it to be. I still miss Risky Reels. Oh, by the way, Epic, they sent out those emails. You didn't get yours. But if you signed up for Epic's newsletter, which you should do, because there's no reason not to. It's not like I send a bunch of spam. But sign up for their newsletter. It's in the footer. And you get, like, at the end of the season, you get a little recap letter. And in the past, it was a cool little letter with some interesting, weird little stats of yours from the last season. This time they did it like it's like one of those Facebook recap. This is your year in review videos, and it was really cute, and it gave you some random stats. And a lot of people got what was their most dropped point. So I was really curious as to what Drunkies was. We've got a couple guesses, but mine, statistically, apparently according to Epic, was Risky Reels.
Oh, you mean the block? Yikes! Sorry, bro. I am so glad. I am so glad Risky Reels is gone, man.
It was.
I love it. It's not. It ruined Tomato Town.
Oh, you get over Tomato Town. Tomato Town already got ruined. It's a temple. Get out of here.
How dare you?
The other thing, actually, we should talk about is creative. I don't know if you've been watching what's been going on. We haven't had anything actually officially put on the block yet, but I am getting really excited to see what they do start choosing and placing in there, because I've been watching Reddit, I've been watching Twitter. Some of the creations that people are making are absolutely unbelievable. They did unlock the Lucky Landing assets in creative mode now. So you've got all those extra assets. I have seen some absolutely... one of my favorite ones, I wish I knew the Reddit user, I apologize, but he created like a market town. Like a small market town area that was just beautiful, filled with trees, really densely packed. It was so cool, and I'm so excited to see what people are making. And I really want, there's more of them that I want in the game. Oh, someone made a bus depot. There's all these buses in Fortnite. Where are they coming from? I was like, genius. Yeah, and it looked so good. And like, I want all of them in the game now. Like Epic Games has no shortage of ideas now from the community for what they can do for new POIs, and I'm really excited about that. Get on Reddit, get on Twitter, guys. Watch this stuff. Sign up for Epic's newsletter. Get in there.
Yeah, I think one of the best things I've seen are like the DM maps that people are making with creative, where it's just a death match.
Yeah.
Dude, I see a lot of pros. They basically just built a box and have people spawn inside of it and like go from there, like have fun. And like that stuff is amazing. Creative, like I can't wait to start building maps. Everyone recreating Call of Duty maps, Halo maps, dude. Like creative mode is like just beginning and it's already massive.
That was what I initially thought was just like the gun game type stuff, and I was really excited about that, like that you used to think about in Counter-Strike. But now it's just like they're making just beautiful POIs, and I'm like, these are gorgeous. Like I'm really excited about that. I think it's that was a really cool stroke of genius, I think, from Epic's part, because now they're letting the community do the grunt work for them, and it's going to work, and it looks great. Like I'm really excited about it. So
yeah,
it's fun. It keeps everyone engaged. It's fun.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for episode 17 of the Fortnite Update. I am Drunky. You can find me on twitch.tv/Drunky.
I am The Flood. You can find me at twitch.tv/The Flood. I had to think about that. That was weird.
All right, we'll see you guys next week for episode 18 of the Fortnite Update. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.